So what do politics have to do with the Manafort cases, especially this new round of charges dropped today? Let's talk about it with tonight's Power Panel. Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall, former DOJ prosecutor Jim Trusty, and Fox News contributor former Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy. Great to see all of you tonight.
Hi, Shannon.
You too.
All right, Jim, I'll start with you. This indictment today, District Attorney Vance here in Manhattan says this, quote, "No one is beyond the law in New York." What's this all about?
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing, I think. I hate to be on a panel with Andy McCarthy and say anything bad about New York, but this is a circumstance where, look, prosecutors are supposed to go where the evidence leads them. They may have a very strong, justifiable case, but to roll it out in a fashion where you're picking a political fight and saying this will stop the pardon from working, I think that's actually a bad day for prosecutors, no matter what your politics.
Yeah, just so folks understand, the federal charges, the president could offer him a pardon. He says he's not even thought about it. It's not on his brain right now. He feels bad for Manafort, but that's not a conversation he's having. State charges are something different. But, you know, when you look at the totality of what happened today for Manafort, it's not a good day to be him. But Leslie, top Democrats in the Senate are actually divided on the sentence he got. You heard Senator Blumenthal there saying, like, listen, he got away with it. On the other side, Senator Dianne Feinstein, who says, listen, I put people behind bars. I know what it's like to do time in jail, and this is actually a significant sentence. Where do you come down on it, Leslie?
Well, today in the green room earlier, Judge Napolitano and I were kind of taking bets as to what she would do with a maximum 10 years. And I had said 8, and it came pretty close to that. But quite frankly, there are a lot of people, left and right, that felt his former sentencing was extremely lenient. And they weren't surprised when they had the foreshadowing from the judge talking about the financial means that his family has, talking about excuses that he has made, and also talking about the fact he hadn't written a letter to her. I think she was foreshadowing the fact that she was going to be very tough. But also, she could have been tougher because she did have a combination of, he could have had concurrency and, 100% or not, and she chose to kind of split the difference on that. So I don't think she was as hard as him as some expected.
So, Andy, what do you make? As Jim said, you're a New Yorker. You have practiced law and been a prosecutor in this jurisdiction here. What do you make of these new state charges against Manafort, and what's motivating them?
Yeah. Well, I guess first, I was a federal prosecutor in New York. I think what the state did today was a disgrace. And I think they know that under New York state law, Shannon, it was wrong. Actually, New York state follows what's known as equitable double jeopardy. And what that means is, if someone's already been prosecuted on something that arises out of the same facts, you're not supposed to prosecute them in New York a second time. And in this instance, I know your earlier report said the cases are unrelated. They actually are not unrelated. The bank fraud in New York that was charged today arises out of the same transactions that were involved in Mueller's prosecution in Virginia. So this is a case that New York ordinarily wouldn't bring, and they've obviously only brought it for political purposes to block a pardon, which, if you step back and think about it, if this weren't such a prosecution fraught with politics, we'd be saying, why is the state of New York watering down the civil liberties protections of New Yorkers just to stick it to Trump and Manafort? I mean, I just think that's outrageous. As for what happened today in the sentencing, I know a lot of criticism has been leveled at the judges because the sentencing could have been more severe. A lot of people think it should have been more severe. The reason that this sentencing today was capped at 10 years is because Mueller's special prosecutor's office manipulated the conspiracy statutes. Manafort should have been looking at a 20-year conspiracy count for money laundering and a 20-year conspiracy count for witness tampering. Mueller capped each count at 5 years, so the judge was stuck at a ceiling of 10 years, and this is the kind of thing I think Mueller has done throughout the investigation. They filed charges with these, overwhelming, sensational press releases, and then they plead the cases out to a song, and everybody ends up thinking, well, the people must have pled guilty to the cases as advertised, and usually that's just not the case.
I want to make sure that we touch on the transcripts that were released of former FBI lawyer Lisa Page, who was caught up in the texting with Peter Strzok, and the testimony that she essentially gave that said they were looking at pursuing potential charges against Hillary Clinton with gross negligence in handling classified information, that kind of thing. And basically she says they got the message from the DOJ like, not going to happen. Jim, what do you make of it?
Yeah, very disturbing again. I mean, what I would say is, no matter what your political stripes, you should care about process. I think a lot of people focus on results of legal investigations, results at sentencing, what the numbers look like. But the process is so important in terms of getting justice. And right now, there's still very fair questions, again, no matter what your political stripe, about the differences between the Clinton probe and the Trump probe. What happened with the FISA court? Who knew that there were misstatements? There's questions like Bruce Orr meeting with a decommissioned informant long after that guy's been fired by the FBI that still haven't been satisfactorily answered. So, and it may be that only Congress, with kind of the speeches in place of, look at it, but somehow somebody someday needs to really drill down on the originations of these cases and the bias that infected them.
Well, we continue to get a drip of information. I assume that will continue to our Power Panel. Come back and discuss it. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.